this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Cleared table, black cloth, must be 2021 Project Orchids time. So this will be part 2, our initial look, and the 5 plants in part 2 are the Dendrobium set. So the idea of this initial video in the Project Orchids is to look the plants over and establish what they are like now at the beginning of the growing season. Have a chat about what my expectations are, what I'd like to see from the plant over the growing season, and then we will revisit all the plants again in June, and then in September, and then again at the end of the year. So we will get each update will compare with the one before and see what progress has been made, and then when we get to the end of the year we will review the plant's performance over the whole of the growing season. So quite long-term project this. So let's get going with the first in this set. Okay, so the first one in the set is Dendrobium primulinum, and it's the variety laos. Now I have got no, I haven't got primulinum anymore. I actually went to somebody else on the grounds I've got this one. So I've only got this variety now. This is, I won't say it's a young plant, but I believe it's an unbloomed plant. Now I got this 2 years ago at Malvern from one of the sellers from the Far East basically, and I looked him in the eyes and said, "Are you absolutely sure that is variety laos?" And he said, "Yes, this one with yellow." So I'm accepting that on good faith on the grounds that I'm never going to know until it blooms. So it's quite a little established set of existing canes down here. That's what was on it when I got the plant, and I grew these 2 canes last year. Looking at the older canes and the size of these canes, it looks like the variety laos produces shorter canes than its normal variety, but that remains to be seen. And I think we will prove that one way or the other by the end of this growing season, as I've got 2 nice new growths starting already. So we're underway with this one. It's got reasonable roots at the base of the plant. Some have gone onto the bare bit of the mount, some have gone up into the moss, and it looks like it's going to lose its leaves on these 2 canes in the not too distant future. So so be it. And I don't believe this is going to bloom this year, simply because it would probably have signs of buds on these 2 canes if it was going to. So maybe not this year, but the idea now is to water and feed this well through the growing season and get the best as possible that I can get from these 2 new growths. It would be nice, very nice, if another 1 or 2 growths popped up during the season. But the fact that these are well underway now, I doubt if that's going to happen. We're probably just going to get these 2 new canes now. So we'll see how that one does in the growing season, and then hopefully next year, which will be off the end of the project obviously, I would hope to get blooms, and then we can see these in all their glory, because the blooms on this variety are absolutely stunning. So that's the first one. Right, the next one's a bit of a biggie. Actually, no, it isn't a big plant, it's a tall plant. But it does mean I do have to step right back to get it in shot. Ratty dogs. Barking at nothing, as usual. There's nothing there, you know. Anyway, this one hasn't been repotted yet, and I probably won't bother. This is good quality bark. I think it's okay. Don't see anything wrong with it. It's got some other stuff in it lower down in the pot, but it seems to be growing okay. No need for a repot urgently. But what we've got on here is effectively 3 canes, one of which is obviously the newest. I would say the shorter one is the oldest. I don't see any signs of canes being removed, and yet this cannot be a seedling, so it's a division process of elimination, so it's been taken off a larger plant. So be it. So this is the oldest cane. This one doesn't look as though it's ever bloomed. This is the next oldest cane, and it's useful to actually see that this has bloomed from the apex, slightly below the apex, and the next leaf joint down. So it has actually bloomed in those places on that single cane. Now that's useful to know when we come over here, because when we come over here we've got two lovely buds growing on the top of the latest cane. This is the newest cane. Now this is a black hair type, so I need to pay particular attention and make sure it doesn't get any bugs, because these really do not like systemics on them. But at the moment it's growing okay. Two buds, which will be its first blooming for me, and you can see a node there, or nubbin, another one there, and another one down here. And process of elimination says if it managed to bloom in those places on that cane, there's no reason why it won't do it here. Now if this is anything like most of the black hair types, these blooms are going to be long lasting. Now whether they're going to last long enough for these other nubbins to push out and actually bloom at the same time, I don't know. I haven't had the plant long enough, I don't know how it works. And it could be that each one of these nubbins blooms one at a time with quite a gap in between. We don't know. But hopefully during this season we will find out, because this cane is now getting itself into blooming mode. So we should have some blooms open, well, I'll say reasonably soon, but it won't be that soon because the blooms on this are large. And I would suggest that these buds need to swell up a bit more before this actually opens. Lovely pristine white with yellowy orange centre on this one. And as I said, large blooms. I don't know whether they're fragrant. We'll find out. So that's a representative of the black hair types, and we'll see how that one progresses. No signs of new growths yet, but we'll see how that goes. I would expect a new cane to start sometime during this season. Bearing in mind I got this sometime last year. I can't remember when or where. I really can't. But I've had it a little while anyway, and we'll see how it goes. I've got a feeling I actually got this from Burnham's. So this might have been part of my 70th birthday Spenzies money that I took to Burnham's with me. Anyway, that's that one. And the next one we've got is Dendrobium in a bucket. The spectabile is, in my opinion, grossly overpotted, but the fact that it's in giant chunky bark is, yeah, okay. Now what we should be looking at now is a plant with two good strong spikes in full bloom, but some clumsy clod actually broke one of the spikes off before it even opened, so it left us with one. And these truly are the most unusual shaped blooms you could possibly imagine. They really are something else, the way they work, the way the lip curls back under itself and has a hood over the top and changes colour halfway down, and the curly twisty petals and sepals. It's quite something. So we're starting this one actually in bloom, and I was going to say, and there's no sign of new growth yet, but yes there is. Down in there, let's get that bit of bark out of the way, give it room to breathe. Down in there is a new growth. So we do have a single new growth starting at the moment. I would hope for more, but the way this one blooms is the spikes tend to come out underneath a leaf, and we sort of go from there really. So we're sort of looking back. This one has bloomed. This cane here. This one has bloomed from the same place. Yeah, this one has bloomed from the same place. Not sure about that one, and now we've got this one blooming from that same place basically. So that's the plant. Leaves could do with a wash off, I think. I presume that will come off, will it? Let's just give it a go, shall we? See if that... It's probably, you know, from the nursery when it's been sprayed with something or other and then hasn't been washed off. Coming from, well, I don't know where this comes from. It was a gift from Zana, so I'm not quite sure where it came from, but originally. But there we are. So we're starting the season with this one actually in bloom, and it's been in bloom a while now. I don't know how long the blooms will last, but being a Latoria type, probably some considerable time. There's no sign of them going over yet. And we have one single new cane just starting at the base of the plant. So that's where we start the season on this one. Alright, so the next one is Dendrobium lindleyi, still referred to by many as aggregatum, and that is an accepted synonym, so you can call it either. Strictly speaking, in my book, it should be Dendrobium lindleyi because it was first described by Mr. Lindley. So I think it should have his name. But somewhere along the line, not long after that, it adopted the name aggregatum, which it retained for an incredibly long time. But in more recent times, lindleyi has been accepted by the RHS as its true name, with aggregatum as a synonym. Now, I don't expect to find any new growths on here yet, and as far as I'm concerned, this is still resting, but unfortunately it's not. Having just got it down and had a good look at it, let's see if you can see why it's no longer resting. You spotted it yet? And it's not a new growth you're looking for. What you're looking at is there and there. Those are spikes just starting. So we're starting this one at the point where canes are starting to show their spikes. Now this should resolve an issue that I've personally got, because I haven't had the plant long enough to know. Can it bloom and produce a spike on a cane in a subsequent year to the first cane, the first time that cane blooms? Now I will probably say already yes it can, simply because that is a very old cane and that has got absolutely nothing to do with me, and it has a spike on it. Yeah? Looks like that cane down in there is pushing a spike out the side, possibly. But once this one starts producing spikes, they seem to pop out from all over the place. So, and certainly these larger canes, I would think, are gonna bloom this year. Well, one of them is already. Whether the other 3 or 4 will follow suit, we'll have to wait and see. But I think I had 4 or 5 strong new growths last year on top of the plant that I bought, that I didn't actually expect was big enough to bloom, but it did. We had a nice show on it. Effectively that area was the original plant, and we had blooms, and then the new growths went out that way. Yeah, so these are the new growths around here. You can see they're a lot larger. So I put on some good growth last season. I'd expect at least that amount of new growth this year. So the plant's going to get, hopefully, considerably bigger during this growing season. If it can push out 4 or 5 new growths of similar size to this, imagine that on the plant. It's going to be considerably larger going into its rest at the end of the growing season. So we're starting this one with a couple of little spikes just showing that weren't there last time this had a drop of water. And as such, this one will now be brought round and water will start being introduced because it's moving. You know, I always say that as soon as you start getting growth, you should start giving it a bit of water. It doesn't really need any feed yet, but once these spikes start extending and thinking about producing buds, it will, because it's going to take the energy from somewhere, and if you don't put some new energy in there, it'll just drain the old canes. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. So we are going to get some blooms. How many, I don't know, But the beauty of this one is that each spike contains quite a lot of blooms, and they tend to all come quite close together, so it should put on a reasonable show. How long? I can't remember how long it took last time, from the time the spikes first emerged to the time the blooms started to open, so we'll have to wait and see. But we are going to get some blooms, that's the main thing, and I would expect at least 4, hopefully 5 or 6 new growths from this plant. It's a strong plant, the leaves are in good condition. It has been grown on from a seedling. These are the old little seedling canes down here, yeah, little tiny ones, and it's grown on and expanded since then, and I expect it to carry on doing so. It would be nice if it could push some new growth out this way. That would be good. Sort of fill that hole in, but we'll have to wait and see. It's unpredictable where the new growths will come from. Logically they will come from the base of the latest canes, but we'll have to wait and see. So that's that one, Dendrobium lindleyi. It's quite a high percentage of mounted orchids in this set, simply because it's the Dendrobiums, and the majority of my Dendrobiums are mounted. That's just how it goes. They seem to do well that way. Some other types of plants may not do as well, but these certainly do. Now this is Dendrobium tortile, or tortile. I would say tortile, but depends. This originally came from Alberto in Italy when he had to give up his collection because he got the most wonderful job looking after the orchids in Kew Gardens in London. Lucky devil. Unfortunately, possibly the downside of that is you do have to live in London, which is not my favourite place to live, great place to visit. But it's just so expensive, basically. A capital city, it's probably the same in most countries. Double the price of everything, treble the price of property, if not quadruple. Anyway, so we did have a look at this not that long ago, but a slightly more detailed look this time, because this is our, initial look for the growing season. Now this is unbloomed for me. The original cane actually rotted, the one I got from Alberto. Luckily there were 2 little new growths that managed to push on. Those are they, not these, yeah? Last season we got a new growth at the base of each plant, so there's physically 2 plants here now. They got split off the original cane as what then were kikis. So first 2 canes, new cane on each one last year. Nice big fat canes, nice and healthy, and I would suggest that's a bit too near the roof. I think that's getting a little bit scorched. We need to drop that down a little bit. And basically these type of plants that like a rest in the winter and often come from deciduous or semi-deciduous forests, they get quite a lot more light in the winter time, and it's quite important to them to induce the buds. But when the growing season starts and the leaf cover starts coming back onto those trees, they don't get as much light during the growing season. And it's not, that fact is relatively straightforward, but it's important that they do get an increase in light for their winter rest, for their winter period. Drop in temperature, increase in light, stop the old feed and reduce the watering right down to next to nothing. That's what a proper winter rest amounts to. If I stopped water altogether, some of my Dendrobiums, the resters, might get away with it because of my high humidity, but I don't like to take the risk on the grounds that those drier winters where they come from are not bone dry. There is a bit of drizzle now and again. There's also some mist and fog and some morning dew, so they do get some moisture even if it's not actual rain. So I don't leave mine dry for any length of time, and I suspect if I had done what a lot of the books would say and the ancient scrolls and writings, that you stop watering at the end of October and don't start again till the middle of February, I doubt if my canes would look nice and plump like these do. I suspect they'd look like wrinkled prunes, the lack of hydration. So anyway, I've got 2 nice big healthy canes on here. Whether they're large enough to bloom or not, I don't know. So we may or may not get some blooms. But each one of the plants has started a new growth. Ambition really would be that at some time in the near future, they push out more than one growth and actually get a second one. Because at the moment we've got a progression of one cane per year, you know, so it's going to be slow progress to get a large plant, and they do eventually become deciduous. Yeah, so I don't know how long these leaves will last, but eventually they will lose their leaves. So that's that one. No sign of any buds on this yet. Again, the buds would come out here opposite a leaf coming out of that joint, I suspect. There's not even any swellings that I can see, so we may get no blooms on this one this season. But what we can do is put on good growth with the 2 new growths I've got, and possibly induce a couple more new growths as well at the same time. It'd be nice to get more than one. So that's where we stand with that one, Dendrobium tortile. Very attractive blooms on there. Sepals and petals twisted. That's what tortile means, twisted, contorted. Yes, so blooms very much like primulinum, but with that aspect added in, with the twisted sort of petals and sepals. If we ever see them, we'll wait and see. Right, that's that one. So there we go, short and sweet for the Dendrobium set with only 5, and yeah, we'll revisit them. I mean, obviously if anything dramatic happens, like the buds open on infundibulum, then those will get filmed as separate entities, but otherwise we will revisit the set in June and see if they've achieved what was expected, or either not as much or better than. And you know what my next task is going to be? No prizes for guessing, if you're keeping up. Right, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.